better. So we are still in the Karma Yoga. We'll complete it today. We are in the last section. Yoga of action, working Krishna consciousnus. So let us pay obeisance to Sri Radha Govinda. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Nanakashalakaya Chakshurmitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Ena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayyam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuttapada Kamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavscha Shri Rupam Sagarajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vittam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakana Vittam Sha हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधो दीनो बंधो जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरि प्रिये वाञ्छा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितां नाम पावनेभ्यो वैष्णव्यो नमो नमः नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण प्रस्थाय भूतले श्रीमती भक्ति वेदांत स्वामीति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चादेशतारिणे जयो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभो नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा. So let us start. So we were in this dealing with, we are in the last section, beware of lust. So this chapter is all about duty. Okay. And it started with the confusion by Arjuna asking whether he wants to take sannyas or do action. He says, you're telling me both. Why tell me one thing? Because you still have not understood the thing. So this section is all about, this chapter is all about law of karma. What is it? So first the Krishna talked about why renunciation is difficult. That means to take up sannyas prematurely before we purify our desires. So he says, do your duty first, prescribed action with detachment, with nishkama karma. Then once you do that, then only you can, once you purify, because the work is required for purification. Then he told how to go from karma kanda. Karma kanda is doing your, you having desire is not bad, but you should purify that. You should do fulfill your desires in a rightful manner as per the Vedas, as the Vedic scripture. That means you do the rituals and satisfy the devatas and you get your desires fulfilled. That is karma kanda. But Krishna says to go one beyond that by sacrificing it to the Supreme Lord. Don't get attached to the results. Then he talked about the people who are self-realized, even if Arjuna is qualified. Because Arjuna says, no, I don't want the kingdom, nor I want the Swargaloka. I would rather go for, not fight. So he is qualified for renunciation. But Krishna says, but you should still fight because you have to set the right example. So people who are self-realized, they have to set the right example for others, because they have to take others also in the same path as a leader. So, and the leaders, we saw that we have, as a parent, we are a leader, as a teacher, we are, because we have taken some responsibilities. Once you take up a responsibilities, then you have to do your duty and not fail from that. You should do it in a rightful manner. So that's what we saw. And today we are going to see how there are some more clarifications Arjuna wants. So this is what we stopped yesterday, that those persons who execute their duties according to my injunctions and who follow this teaching faithfully without envy become free from bondage of fruitive actions. That is, we should not have any envy. Why are we envious? Because we want to enjoy. We want to enjoy ourselves. We don't want to do anything for the others. So here Krishna is telling us to do a selfless duty. So do it just because it's told that you have taken the responsibility to just do it as a duty, right? Then you're free from the reactions, from the bondage of reactions. If you don't follow, what happens? And here, finally, that is the purpose. Because how do we do it? Surrender all your work unto me with full knowledge of me, without desires for profit, no claim of proprietorship, free from lethargy fight. So by surrendering the results to the Lord, because He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and we are doing just for duty and not for ourselves. That means with no desires for profit. And we don't claim the propriety that I am the one who's doing. We have not done. So here, this is the purpose. Finally, this is what the Bhagavad Gita tells us, to do our duty and not to escape. So, but those who out of envy disregard these teachings, do not follow them regularly, are to be considered bereft of all knowledge, befooled and ruined in their endeavors perfection. We had stopped yesterday saying this. Now we might see, he still elaborates. When the Lord says, now he's talking about the persons, about the, when Krishna knows that now we are lethargic and we don't want to do our duty because we don't want to be responsible. So now he's explaining more on these lines so that, these are the situations we are in today. So even a man of knowledge acts according to his own nature. So now he's describing about the persons who are working in knowledge. That means they are self-realized soul. Doesn't mean that they will, when any situation comes, how do they react? You might see many devotees. They have their own svabhava, their own nature. Okay. And accordingly only they will behave. They won't, just because they are in knowledge, they are self-realized, doesn't mean that they'll act differently or they'll all act in the same way. No. So it all depends upon their nature and in which ashrama they are in. Whether if they are like now, Arjuna is Swabhava is a Kshatriya. His nature is to fight. He has been trained and that is his nature. So he has taken up that ashrama, right? So even when he becomes self-realized, he still has to follow according to his nature. That is, he has to fight, not take up the role of a Brahmana, right? So he has to go as per his nature. That's what here Krishna says. And what can repression accomplish means how does they think? Let us see what Prabhupada writes in the purport. So anyone can all of it. Hare Krishna. Unless, yeah, therefore. Unless one is, yes, Mataji, carry on.
Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Unless one is situated on the transcendental platform, Krishna consciousness, he cannot get free from the influence of the modes of material nature, as it is confirmed by the Lord in the 7th chapter, 7.14. Therefore, even for the most highly educated person on the mundane plane, it is impossible to get out of the entanglement of Maya simply by theoretical knowledge or by separating the soul from the body. There are many so-called spiritualists who outwardly pose as advanced in science, but inwardly or privately are completely under particular modes of nature, which they are unable to surpass. Academically, one may be very learned, but because of his long association with material nature, he is in bondage. Krishna consciousness helps one to get out of the material entanglement, even though one may be engaged in his prescribed duties in terms of material existence. Therefore, without being fully Krishna consciousness, one should not give up his occupational duties. No one should suddenly give up his prescribed duties and become so-called yogi or transcendentalist artificially. It is better to be situated in one's own position and to try to attain Krishna consciousness under the superior training. Thus, one may be freed from the clutches of Krishna's Maya.
So here clearly Krishna says that just by understanding, just getting the theoretical knowledge, we cannot become free from the Maya. because we will be acting as per our nature, right? So unless we are fully in Krishna consciousness, then only we can give up our prescribed duties. Otherwise, we should still continue to do our duties. So Arjuna, you are a Kshatriya. So act like a Kshatriya. You in a day, you cannot become a Brahmana. Okay, so you fight. You work as per your psycho-physical nature. Then only you will be happy. So this is what we understand here. Krishna is continuing saying that even if you have the academic knowledge, but still you will be working as per your own nature, whether it's a Brahminical nature or your Kshatriya nature or the Shudra or this. That nature you have, but you still work because we are always in the touch with the contact with the material nature. So for the highly educated person on the mundane plane, it is impossible to get out of the entanglement of them simply by theoretical knowledge. Just thinking that we are the soul and not the body, just that is not enough. Though we have that knowledge, we still not be able to get out of it because we still have our own basic nature which we have been carrying on from birth to birth. That basic nature we have, that's Swabhava, psycho-physical nature, because we are, and that kind of body we would have got and that kind of situation. So here, this is the reason. Here he says, and just controlling, restricting your senses is the first stage, right? But we need to go beyond that. Okay. And there he says, what here in this verse, he says, there are principles to regulate attachment and aversion pertaining to the senses and their objects. One should not come under the control of such attachment and aversion because they are stumbling blocks on the path of self-realization. That is raga dvesha. See, scriptures tells us what are things our duty is there, what are our prescribed duties, right? And also it gives us what are the things we should not do, forbidden actions. So we know prescribed duties and we know the forbidden actions. But what happens is the mind, the problem is with the mind. The mind doesn't want to do the prescribed duties. It doesn't feel like doing it. Okay. But it is more attracted to the forbidden because the more you tell a child, don't do it, but it's like to do it, isn't it? So like that is the mind. Mind is like that. It will like to do what is being told not to do. So that is the raga and dvesha we have. So even if we know, even if the devotees who are come into this path, that is the challenge they have because their natures is there, no, the swabhava. So they know fully well that is forbidden, but still they'll vasanas or the samskaras from the previous thing, they'll get attracted. So how do we come out of it is only by exercising the determination, try to control the mind and don't get and take the help of the scriptures to cut these knots of attachment and aversion. Okay, because they are the stumbling blocks in our spiritual path. So it is. So in the Prabhupada, there's nice things Krishna Prabhupada writes. We did next one. So unrestricted sense enjoyment is the cause of material engagement, but one who follows the rules and regulations does not get entangled. Okay, so there, but even if you are trying to restrict and trying to follow, there can always be some accidents can clip because they can fall prey victim to this attraction. So here he says, as much there are, one has to follow this. We should not rely upon the control of such allowances. We should always be regulation in our sense enjoyment. Here is what, okay. One has to follow these regulations unattached because practice of sense gratification under regulation may also lead to gross debt. You might say, I'm doing this in a regulated manner, the sense gratification, so I won't get attached. But there can always be a chance of accident. So even on royal roads, you can have accidents. So the Prabhupada gives that analogy, saying there's always a danger. Even if it's on a safe road, there can always be an accident. So even if you say that I'm disciplined and I can control this, my senses and all that, but there's always a chance of falling down. So instead of that, if you get attached to Krishna consciousness or act always in the loving service of Krishna, then you can easily get detached, because attachment and trying to detach forcibly is very difficult. When you're trying to forcibly detach yourself, trying to be more austere and all that, then what happens? The mind is, it can't control your mind, exercise so much control on your mind. What's your thing? We're trying to repress it. So instead of doing that, if you attach to the Krishna service of Krishna consciousness, then automatically you'll be detached from these material desires. That's what Prabhupada writes. But attachment to Krishna consciousness or acting always in the loving service of Krishna detaches one from all kinds of sensory activities. Therefore, there's no one should try to be detached from Krishna consciousness at any stage of life, because there's always a thing of accident. So the whole purpose of detachment from all kinds of is ultimately to become situated on the platform of Krishna consciousness. So this is what is very difficult. So Krishna says to be very careful. So in the principles to regulate the attachment and things, one should not come under the control of such thing, thinking that I can control it. So it is far better to discharge one's prescribed duties, even though faultily, than another's duties perfectly. Distraction in the course of performing one's own duty is better than engaging in another's duty. To follow another's path is dangerous. So here Krishna is clearly telling Arjuna, do your own duty as a Kshatriya. That is your prescribed duty. You have been there. Rather than taking up sannyas, because you are not trained for that, nor it is not in your nature. Okay. So you might think, this is something which we find people, they are not happy today. We find people, they're not happy in their jobs, because they would have just thought, they would have followed somebody, who would have seen someone else taking up a thing and being in that position. So they think they get attracted by it and they go and take up that particular job. But only when they find they are in that job, they are not satisfied, because their nature is not like that. So you just follow somebody else and it's not in your purview. Then we find many people not happy in their job, because they are not engaged in the work as per their nature. So here Krishna says, that is not your nature. In a day, you cannot become a Brahmana, right? So that's not your nature. So you discharge your duty, even if it is faultily, it's okay, rather than taking up somebody else's path. That is more dangerous. But you have instances where you have Parashrama was a Brahmana, right? But he was a very self-realized role. And then when you're in that high level position, they can take up the role of a Kshatriya. He took up the role of a Kshatriya too, because that was the honor we got from the Lord to remove there were a lot of Kshatriyas who were doing religious activities, so he had to take up the role of a Parashurama, took that role to dominate. So though he was born as a Brahmana and he was trained and he was a self-realized soul. Same way with Vishwamitra. So he was a Kshatriya, but he became a Brahmana, right? So there are the ones, they are in a different stage. So we cannot just follow them. We are still in our nascent stage, but it depends upon how far advanced are you in Krishna consciousness, how much you have surrendered to the Lord, and how much you think. So that depends. So here Krishna is saying, it's better to do your own Swadharma. Don't take Paradharma. Don't take somebody else's duties. Okay. So finally, with all that, which Krishna was talking about the person in knowledge, then you're talking about the person's ignorant, how they should not induce them and force the others to take to the path of Krishna consciousness, because it takes time for them to come out of their nature and adopt this. So with all that thing, then finally there is some doubts in Arjuna. So Arjuna is asking a very important question. What is using after hearing text, one may determinedly think, yes, from today onwards, I will steadily do my duty and control my attachments and aversions. I will act only according to Shastra. So you will think that I will do like it because he has understood that these are the prescribed duty and I won't do the forbidden actions. I will do just what the Shastra says. An experienced teacher state that however such immediate inspirations may prove difficult to adhere to over time, because you might be inspired and you might, like, we make so many resolutions, in the new year, I'll do this, I'll do that, but in course of time, you will forget and you'll come back to your work. So, Arjuna, being aware of reality, asks the following questions. So he knows, yeah, you told me you have to act as per the Shastras and have to think, but there is something which is pulling me to do the forbidden action. Okay, so what is that? So he knows the reality because this is what we are in these situations today. We have been hearing so many things from about Bhagavad Gita, what Krishna says, and still we are working. So Arjuna Uvacha. Atakena prayuktoyam papam charati purushaha anicham avi vasneya baladeva niyojita. O descendant of Vrishni, by what is one impelled to sinful acts, even unwillingly, as if engaged by force? What is that which is pulling me to do the sinful acts? So here Arjuna wants to know this clarity. Okay, you have told me so many things, and there are things, but there is something inside me which is pushing me towards doing the sinful acts. So this is what. So this is a challenge which many of the devotees take thing, and even people who are in material thing, they also know that this is something which is uh, in our real life. So Bhagavan Vacha. Kama esha krodha esha rajoguna samudbhavaha mahashano mahapapa videyinam hi vairina. Iha vairinam. Vairinam is enemies. Supreme God, Personality of God said, it is lust only, Arjuna, which is born of contact with the material mode of passion and later transformed into wrath, and which is the all-devouring sinful enemy in this one. Iha vairina. Kama esha krodha. So in chapter 2 also Krishna has talked about that 6 stages, how we fall down. That is when we, by contemplating the objects of senses, whether you like it, you will be contemplating, oh, do I like it? Or I don't like it. And you see certain sense objects and you start contemplating in your mind. That is, you're still in the thinking stage, right? Then you slowly you'll develop an attachment. You like to think, okay, I like it so much. Can I have it? Or I don't like it. Let me not have it. Like that, you start getting attached to that. It's a feeling stage. And then that leads to when that goes too much in your mind, then you start thinking of how to have it, which leads to that. So willing and then doing stage. That's when you start trying to take it, to have it. That's when it leads to lust. Then we saw that how unsatisfied lust results in anger. You start having a fear that you might lose it. If you have it, you will think that you might lose it. If you don't get it, then the frustration comes. That also will lead to anger. So both. And that when you're in very intense anger, then it starts in a delusion. Slowly you're bewildered and you lose your memory. That don't know what you're doing, loss of intelligence and falls down. So this was talked, Krishna had told us, right? So we saw this. So again, Krishna is telling the same thing here. It is because of your born of contact with the material mode of passion and later transformed it. That is our vasanas, the thing which we have created from behind. That is what we have, Rajaguna, Samudbhava, Asanu, Mahapapa. This is the Vairi. Okay. So let us see what is written in the purport. So you can read the first paragraph. Anybody else? Hare Krishna. Anyone can take any living entity. Hare Krishna. All of things.
When a living entity comes in contact with the material creation, his eternal love for Krishna is transformed into lust in association with the mode of passion. Or, in other words, the sense of love of God becomes transformed into lust as milk in contact with sour tamarind is transformed into yogurt. Then again, when lust is unsatisfied, it turns into wrath. Wrath is transformed into illusion, and illusion continues the material existence. Therefore, lust is the greatest enemy of the living entity, and it is lust only which induces the pure living entity to remain entangled in the material world. Wrath is the manifestation of the mode of ignorance. These modes exhibit themselves as wrath and other colaries. If therefore the mode of passion, instead of being degraded into the mode of ignorance, is elevated to the mode of goodness by the prescribed method of living and acting, then one can be saved from the degradation of wrath by spiritual attachment.
So this is what prayer we said. That is the lust. So because we are in the mode of passion, only then we start liking to have, trying to acquire it or trying to get the thing. So instead of degrading ourselves to the mode of ignorance, if you can rise up to the mode of goodness by prescribed living and acting as without taking the help of the spiritual master, then you can avoid it. So this is the last is the our devouring and sinful enemy of this world. This is what Krishna is saying. Okay. So let us go back to the thing where. So therefore, the mode of passion being degraded in the mode of ignorance is elevated to the mode of goodness by prescribed method of living and acting. Then we can be saved from the degradation of wrath by spiritual attachment. So by spiritual attachment only we can try to control. I mean, don't go down, can go rise up. Okay. So now Krishna is explaining it further about the characteristics of this lust. What is it? As fire is covered by smoke, as a mirror is covered by dust, as the embryo is covered by the womb, the living entity is similarly covered by different degrees of this lust. So now he's explaining the different. I mean, lust is not also has different degrees. Like if you're in the womb, right, it's fully dark, that cannot move at all. Just like the trees. See, the trees have the least consciousness. Okay, they cannot move, they are all stable, and for them, it is covered like that. So they have no chance of, they have to undergo that period of, the tree live as a tree for as long as been destined, and then they cannot do anything. They cannot take to the self-realization. Okay, there's no chance of self-realization for trees because they are in embryo is covered by the womb, just like that. Okay, that is the lust, how they are covered. Whereas for the animals, it's like the mirror, the dust on the mirror. Because the animals can move and all that, there's a chance. But there is a limited amount, they think. But as a human beings, it's like the smoke in the fire. You can, by controlling the smoke, you can blow in some air and thing and regulating, you can make it blazing. Like you can reduce the smoke and things. So there's a chance of self-realization. So this is what Krishna is telling us, the degree of lust which we have, how we are covered by that and we cannot come to the thing. So these are the 3 degrees of covering of lust, beginning of Krishna consciousness, smoke and fire, cleansing by spiritual method. You can look at another way. So that is one way of looking at the living entities. Another way is, once you have in the thing, there is a chance of, once you start in the beginning of your Krishna consciousness, because just like, then by purification, by prescribed methods, you can cleanse your spiritual methods. So now, otherwise, your knowledge is completely covered by things. That is, you're completely in ignorant. Okay. So by purification, you can cleanse it by spiritual methods and rise up, or you can, the choice is us. That is, it depends upon the covering, how much we are induced by the sense gratification. Okay. So in human form, possible to conquer lust, but it is under able guidance is possible. Okay. Arvatam jnanam etana jnanina nitya vairina kama rupena kaunteya dushparnalena. That is, thus the wise living entity's pure consciousness becomes covered by his eternal enemy in the form of lust, which is never satisfied and which burns like fire. So the lust, there's more characteristics which Krishna says here. That is, the characteristics of lust is that it covers the living entity's pure conscious. Actually, when you are in your constitution position, when you are in thing, you are pure. But once you come into the material nature and then you're attracted to the sense objects, what happens? Your gets contaminated, right? And it's a symbol of ignorance, right? And it is never satisfied. Even if one desire is satisfied, there'll be some more desires come. It's like continuous thing, so it is cannot be satisfied completely. And satisfying lust is like adding fuel to the fire. So when there's a fire going on and you want to extinguish, and if you use fuel, then you can't extinguish, isn't it? The fire will still keep going and blazing and blazing. It's the same way the desires which we have. If you think that I will say, let me satisfy this desire, because then some more desires come, some more desires will come. That you'll never satisfy all your desires. It's like adding fuel to fire. And these desires are all coming from, like, you might think that you don't have them, but it is some situation, somewhere it might get triggered. And that is because of our vasanas, samskaras which we carry from our previous lives. Okay. Like you can take the example of Ajamila. See, Ajamila was leading a very pious life. No, he was his fathers were very pious, and he was listening to his parents, and he was doing all the religious acts, and he had a nice wife and all that. But just the chance when he was in the forest and he saw that a couple being in the passion, then it was there somewhere dormant, the desire which was dying, that got triggered. And he fell victim to that desire, and the rest of his life he just devoted to that, and he couldn't control it. Okay, it got triggered. Same way, like there are so many vasas which will be there dormant because from our past lives, and it can take us over. It can pull us in that direction, away from what the scripture says. So then you are, Jiva will always be like dilly-dallying between this and that. And you can easily overcome because you have a free will. There is a determination in your thing which you can overcome. Okay. So these are the characteristics. Like either you can get carried away by that or it is. So how do you stop it? Well, stop feeding it. Let it die. So don't fuel it. Don't try to support it. Only by spiritual strength you can stop it. So here Krishna continues to say, the sense indriyani manobuddhi asadistam uchyate eto vimohasti esha jnanam avriti dehina. The senses, the mind and intelligence are the city. See, you know it's an enemy, right? He says it's your enemy. Then if you want to target the enemy, if you want to fight with it, then you should know where it is, where the enemy is there, where the target is. Only if you know where the target is, then only you can fight with it, fight with that person, right? Same here, if you want to fight this lust, then we should know where does it sit. So Krishna is telling us the senses, the mind and intelligence are the sitting places of the lust. Through them, lust covers the real knowledge of the living entity and bewilders. So here there was a nice analogy given in the purport, saying that this, I think you all have seen even in the level 1 class, that senses are these 5 horses. Your senses are your eyes, nose, your mouth, your hands, ears, touch, and tongue, right? And the reins which is controlling it is your mind. So this body, this chariot is your body, and these horses are your senses, and the mind is the one which is reins controlling these senses. And behind that, who is driving it is your intelligence. And who is sitting in this is your soul. Okay. So your sense lust is is residing in these three. Like, once you see some sense object and all that, that gets imprinted into your mind. It's like a reservoir. It keeps all storing all that desires, whether it likes it or don't like it, everything sits there. And so unless you control them, you are not able to control your lust. That covers the knowledge. So let us see the purport. And I marked this. Let's see what Prabhupada writes. So the enemy has captured different strategic positions in the body of the conditioned soul. Therefore, Lord Krishna is giving hints of those places so that one who wants to conquer the enemy may know where he can be found. So mind is the center of all the activities of the senses. And thus, when we hear about sense objects, the mind generally becomes a reservoir of all ideas of sense gratification. Okay. As a result, the mind and senses become the repositories of lust. So now the intelligence, what happens to the intelligence department? The intelligence department becomes the capital of such lustful propensities. Intelligence is the immediate next door neighbor of the spirit soul. So lusty intelligence influences the spirit soul to acquire the false ego and identify itself with the matter. So it starts getting attracted to it and it thinks I am doing and I like it, and that false ego. And thus with the mind and senses. The spirit thus becomes addicted to enjoying the material senses and takes this as true happiness. This false identification of the spirit soul is very nicely explained in the Bhagavatam. So this is what happens. Finally, we think that is happy and we get addicted to the material sense object. Okay? By mistake, thinking that is the true happiness. So, therefore, Arjuna, best of the Bharatas, in the very beginning carved this great symbol of sin by regulating the senses and slay this destroyer of knowledge and self-realization. Because that will not, that they are the obstacles in our spiritual life, right? So we need to do that. So we saw the sitting places are senses, mind, intelligence. And these are the five senses which we have said, the horses, and there's a mind. And we have the intelligence to think which is right or which is wrong. And then there's a soul, okay? And it's the center of all activities of the senses and the reservoir of ideas for sense gratification. So, and that leads to lusty intelligence. That means our increasing of propensity to enjoy. We don't want to commit. So, and what does happens? That will influence the soul to acquire false ego. We think and we get attached to that material identification. This is the process. So how do you conquer the enemy? By regulating the senses and to strengthen the spiritual thing. So unless spiritual strength we have through the scriptures, through the guidance of the spiritual master, then only we can overcome this lust. Okay. So Padma, it says in the thing, scriptures, that even it doesn't mean that you are coming to know now and we have done so many sins and all that. But here it says, even a late beginner can become a lover of God by just following the regulative principles of devotional service. So you don't have to think that is it so late to be in the path of Krishna consciousness? It's not so. Okay. It is not too late. So, Indriyani parinhahur, Indriya param manaha, manastu parabuddhir yavadis. So here, Krishna says, the mind is between senses and intelligence, right? But senses are superior to dull matter, right? But mind is still higher than the senses. And intelligence is still higher than the mind. And soul is even higher than the intelligence. So if you can strengthen the spiritual strength, if you think, then what happens? Then directly you can control your senses. So it all depends on the soul. That means if you can strengthen your spirituality, then you are able to control your senses and the mind. Okay. So this is what here Krishna is telling us. So solution for the thing, hierarchy of sitting places, intelligence, mind, senses. The soul is the hierarchy, okay? And the dull matter. So we have different outlets for activities of lust, right? So that thing. So even the soul is the master of intelligence, mind and senses. Unless it is strengthened by Krishna consciousness, there is every chance of falling down due to agitated mind. Okay. The solution for that is to take to Krishna consciousness. Because then you slowly you'll get detached from the material desires. Otherwise, you're still always attracted to the sense gratification. Okay. If you understand this clearly, then we'll be able to relevance of spiritual strength, how to go take it, because we have to control. So thus knowing oneself to be transcendental to the material senses, mind and intelligence, O mighty armed Arjuna, one should steady the mind by deliberate spiritual intelligence. And thus by spiritual strength, you can conquer this enemy. So when Krishna Arjuna is asking, which is that force which is pulling me to do sinful activities, it says it's lust, it's a desire which is there in you, and it is dormant. You might not know now, but it might be dormant. Something it gets disturbed. Okay, so this is the one which is pulling you in that. If you want to conquer that, it's only by spiritual strength, by taking to Krishna consciousness. So what we learned is all about this progressive yoga ladder. That is, if you do unrestricted sense gratification, that you are not bothered about this, they are still in the animal life. You can, excuse me. Sorry. So you can, here he says to go beyond that karma kanda. Okay, that's when we are in actually following. You have desires, but you do it as per the rightful manner, as per the Vedic scriptures, right? And take to that, then you can satisfy your desires. Then Krishna is telling, go beyond that, go to karma, nishkama karma yoga. That is from karma kanda to karma nishkama karma yoga. He told us to rise that progressive life. Then you can reach to Krishna consciousness. So how you can, and this is what, and what are the obstacles, and what people are in this age or are in perfection, and how they have to do their duties. This is what we learned in this chapter. Okay. So devotees will have some still selfish desires, sakama, and with no desires for personal interest is nishkama. They are in this. So this is what we completely saw. This is what Krishna talked about in this particular chapter. Right? So if you have anything, we can close this. Vancha kalpatra abhyascha kripasindevacha patitam na pavinevo vaishnevo namo namah. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.